My dad. Okay. Dr. Khalid Shabazz.
Woo!
My dad. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, and I have a bunch of fan questions. They want to know a bunch of stuff about you. But what we're going to do first is talk about your story, talk about where you are in life now, where you came from, and you can say whatever you want. I'll probably ask questions here and there, but basically tell us about where you came from, where you were born, what life was like as a child, and the path that you took to get to where you're at.
Yeah, so I was born in Alexandria, Louisiana. Relatively happy kid till about 10 years old. I was molested by a family friend, and then my life just took on a downward turn. And because of that molestation, I went from being an animated, extroverted kid to a depressed kid to a person that was went in a corner and was quiet. And so I was in special education in eighth grade because I wouldn't talk in class. I failed in ninth grade and I failed the 12th grade. So I didn't graduate with my class, and I just kind of graduated in summer school. I got to go to college because I got a big body. I'm about 6'4", 260 pounds. I was about 230 then. And so I got to go to college. I was playing sports. And, I took on this persona of what they call me prime time, but they didn't know I was drinking myself to sleep at night. I was drinking because I was still dealing with the molestation. Most people didn't know. They thought I was aggressive, but I was just fighting every weekend. Anybody that would look at me crazy, I was fighting. And the reason I was fighting is because I didn't know whether I was a damn man or a woman, because nobody taught you how to deal with molestation. So I was just beating everybody up. So people would say, that I was a man. Well, it came to a head one day. These guys jumped me. And I got shot in the back, beat with a shovel, where I almost, lost my life. I was medevaced out to Tyler Medical Center. I was 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the ground. I remember crying and, my friends hanging over me saying, don't die, man, don't die. And even though I thought I was dying, I thought that was stupid. I was like, I can't stop myself from dying. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. But yeah, so they medically backed me out to Tyler Medical Center on a helicopter, where I almost lost my life. And then, what's funny, Khalid, is I come back to school after about 3 months after I healed, and you would think an intelligent person, which I wasn't, obviously, would see, try to change their life around. I see this kid, and so, the dysfunctional environment I grew up in, it's like, I got to be a man. I got to be a man. And so I went to my partners. You always got some friends who, who grew up across the tracks, right? So a guy gave me a 45 and a sawed-off shotgun, right? And so I'm about to eliminate this kid because, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Very stupidly. And so I had one guy, his name was Ace. He's passed on. I got a chance to talk to him before he died. And he said, man, if you do that, and everybody got trigger words, he said, man, oh, man, I'm about to cry. But he said, you're going to let your mom down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You never want to let your mom down. So I didn't do it that night because he said that. And I just went in and beat the kid up. I had a crowbar and, beat the kid up real bad and stuff like that. And then I ended up going to jail. And after I went to jail, after I got out of jail, I went back to Louisiana and worked as a cashier and a janitor. And then, man, for me, I was learning different things. But when mom said you were born, I said, man, I got to change. I don't want this dude to grow up like me. And so when you were born, I decided to change my life and try to be a good dude. And that's where I've been. Honestly, that's where I've been for the last 28 years, just trying to be a good dude and be a man for you and for my family. So that's my story. Sorry, I got emotional, man. But my mom died about 5 years ago, And I've been trying to be a good dude for her for, my whole life.
Yeah. Would you say that getting shot was the lowest moment of your life? Or would you say that being in jail was? I'm only asking you that because I've heard this story before. And I know you told me how you felt when you were in the cell and you realized that you had to stay in there and you were looking at the other dude in there, just all of that stuff. What would you say was the lowest point of your life?
Well, getting shot was the lowest point because I realized when I was down on that ground, I was being something, I was trying to be something because I didn't know what to be. I didn't have any necessarily role models as a man to be. So I'm laying on the ground like about to die. And I don't really even understand why I'm down there because I'm just in so much pain. So that was a low moment. But as you know, when I was in jail, I couldn't go to sleep because he had this guy in there. He was Mexican. He had to be probably about 30, 35. And I know now because I'm older, he was just trying to punk me and he succeeded. So he just rocking back and forth, and playing like he was crazy. And of course, I was scared, so I gave him all my food and all that kind of stuff. But even at that point, I said, "Man, I can't do this thug stuff. I can't be in jail." So yeah, so that was a low moment. But getting shot was just bad because everything that revolves around me is about family. So now my mom had to know that I was shot and I was being a bad boy, so that probably was the lowest moment for me.
Mm. Okay. And what do you think? I mean, obviously, you just said you learned that you were pretending to be somebody else, basically. But what do you think that lowest moment taught you? Like, what positive did you pull from it? Basically, how did that steer your life in a different direction?
Well, I mean, I won't say that in particular steered my life in a different direction. You did that by just being born. But one of the things I realized in jail and being on that ground is that wasn't who I was. I was
Mhm.
just acting out of my dysfunction. I was acting out of my trauma and my pain. And I realized that at that moment, I was like, I shouldn't be down here. I shouldn't be about to die because I'm playing like I'm a tough guy. I'm playing like, because, in the Black community and African American community, man, we got to play tough, to survive. And I was playing like I was a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy. That's just the environment we grew up in. And I was trying to protect myself because I thought people were looking at me because of molestation.
Mhm. So that's actually really good. I think, like you said, a lot of us feel like we have to act a certain way or we're going to get punked or somebody's going to try us or whatever. Like we have to stop it immediately so that somebody doesn't cross the line. What do you say to a kid that feels like he needs to fight all the time, that feels like he needs to let people know that he's whatever, the tough guy or whatever? How did you eventually, because I know now, and because I will live with you, that you're a totally different person, but you had to get there. So what kind of things do you say to someone? Like, what do you think you could say to change someone's mind about how they're seeing the world and about fighting and stuff like that?
Yeah, actually, I deal with a lot of people when I'm talking to them like that. I talk to them and tell them, "Hey, listen, like as all parents or older people do. Hey, walk away. Don't engage in that fighting. It's gonna sound really weird because it's a dichotomy that has to happen. You have to learn to fight. It doesn't have to necessarily be physical, but you got to learn to fight because that's how you become stronger. That's how you learn to survive your environment." And
Mhm.
so a lot of times I'll tell kids who are struggling with that, don't put yourself in situations where you're going to be extremely angry and have to fight, right? And what I mean by that, all of the fights that I really had, I was either drunk or I was just playing basketball, right?
Mhm.
Because those are the environments that you gotta, kind of raise up your alpha male. I'm the man on this court. You ain't nothing. And so it raises not only your anxiety level, but your hypersensitive to being, I don't like the word, but your masculine male, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and so I had to stop drinking, obviously. And then eventually I had to stop playing basketball, which I still love today. but those were my angriest moments. So I say keep yourself out of situations where you're gonna get super angry. And even if you hang around dudes who, and I don't know if you know this about me because you're grown now, I hate people teasing me.
Mm-hmm.
I hate
do
it.
know that.
Yeah, I hate people belittling me. So if I'm in a situation where I got so-called friends who like to put me down, they're not going to be my friends long.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So don't put yourself in situations that would basically take you out of your character. But you have to do some deep thinking with yourself to figure out those situations, right?
That's correct.
Because you don't want to find out by experience, or else it might be too late. So,
yeah, that's right.
But that is true though. I still remember. I'm not gonna get in detail, but I remember at West Fort Hood when it was me, you, and Kendall.
That's right. That's right.
And I remember you almost got into a fight as a really grown man, and that's true. So you do know that about yourself. Like if you're playing basketball, there's a good chance that you might get into a fight. So
yeah, and you remember that situation very vividly. I was kind of just out there playing, and he started pushing, and he called me the N-word. And next thing I knew, I was full blown going back at him. And I'm thinking to myself, I had lost, it's like almost an out of body experience. I had lost who I was. And not only that, I'm showing a bad representative to you and your friend. I'm like, how did I get here? And then you got to realize you playing basketball, you're out of character,
Yeah, that was definitely a very out of character. I remember me and Kendall were like, man, I can't believe he said that.
That's right. But
yeah.
I reverted back to my old ways, and that's why I stopped playing, because I love basketball today. But I can't play because I will start reverting back to those old ways.
That's good. So basically you have to know yourself in order to keep yourself out of those situations. Would you have a recommendation then for somebody to, like, the things that they could do to know themselves better? What do they need to do? Sit down and think about the times they've been angriest, or what?
Well, yeah, absolutely do that. But one of the things I do, if I'm in a conversation with my so-called friends and they're constantly putting me down, I told one of my friends this, and it weirded him out. It weirded him out. But if I'm in a conversation with anybody, not just my friends, and they constantly put me down, when I leave there, I go dictate the whole conversation. I dictated how it made me feel, because when people putting you down, sometimes they laugh, so you can't really tell. You think they're just joking, but they're really not. There's truth in every joke, right? And so I would go down and I would constantly dictate that. And the next time I see that person, I tell them, hey, listen, man, and it's hard to confront somebody about some stuff that you got going on. Say, hey, really, I don't like people putting me down. I don't like people teasing me. I don't like people making snide comments. And if we're going to continue to be in this relationship, you got to stop that, And, it's tough, because the last guy said, oh man, that's just how we play. We've been doing that since we were little. I said, hey, bro, we're not little anymore. We're not in high school anymore. I got grandkids. I don't want you teasing me. And so he didn't understand. And, we're not friends today, but that's part of knowing who you are. You got to get people around you who uplift you as juxtaposed to putting you down. Especially, you have friends, we're so dysfunctional. Like me and your mother will be out somewhere and we'll have a man and a woman with us. And if guys immediately start being negative, right? And they like putting you down in front of your wife. I'm like, dude, where we do that at? Like, we ain't 12, So I'll go dictate that. Then I'll just sit down with the person. Sometimes it's 3-4 weeks later, but I'll sit down with them and say, hey man, I really don't like you doing that. And depending on the maturity of the person, call it, some accept it and most don't. And I got to move on.
Right.